You're very welcome along to week 10 of the NFL and the Matchbook NFL podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and Judah and Brad are here this Friday lunchtime to talk you through their best bets on the weekend's cards. And Judah, before we look ahead, so you can skip a couple of minutes if you'd like, listener or viewer, tell us a little bit of your takeaways from week 9, because we had a week 8 of blowouts, close games, and upsets. And a reminder, there's a lot of uncertainty in this league so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, we had a ton of kind of crazy games. I think the most surprising was probably the Vikings beating the Lions as pretty significant underdogs, and then the Steelers kind of coming out of nowhere to force a ton of turnovers versus the Colts. Thrilling game, and I mean Denver-Houston in terms of the very last bit of that. New England-Atlanta came down to the wire. Also would have been a huge upset. There is just, and then like Seattle just completely blowing the doors off Washington. There is just, I think it's a reminder of a world of possibility can happen in the NFL every Sunday, and we can try and predict only so much. And obviously our goal is just to be better than market, but it's a sea of uncertainty out here, and it's important to remember that, especially kind of anchoring ourselves where we are in the season. It's easy to get lost in the week to week, but that's the nature of the league we're betting on.
And in the middle of it, Judah, does anything surprise you? Like, say this season, there's something you watch go out like that. Actually, I was ready for surprises, but that was too much. Is that real?
No, that's just by virtue of watching the NFL for so long, nothing surprises me. But like, yeah, if you want to talk about the Colts being 7-2 and making a trade for Sauce Gardner and going like, yeah, you kind of do have to shove in a situation where like the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens are all behind you in the standings right now. Like through 9 weeks, that doesn't happen. Every year with the Daniel Jones quarterback team. Like that's just a crazy thing that's kind of happened that we've all accepted. That like preseason would have been almost unfathomable to me.
Yeah, Brad, because we've seen it both ways. Teams giving up on their season, like the Jets, and then other teams calls gone, right, this is actually a serious chance. So I was going to actually ask you, as a bettor, do you reevaluate during the season if it's going well or not? But maybe you can bring that into the overall NFL landscape as well if you want.
It's very hard to gauge, I don't know, desire, whatever you want to call it, like the Jets this week. How do the Jets play? Because I think the fan base is excited that, we've got 5 first-round picks the next 2 years. Like we've got a clear direction, great. And then, but you have Breece Hall tweeting on deadline day, like emojis, sort of like trade me, please, so I'm not left on this dead team. So is the team like they've given up on us, or is the team like, we have a direction, we have a plan, let's go out and play well? I don't know. My default is teams are playing hard, and I think more often towards the end of the season, you want to back the teams that people think have given up, because they probably haven't, because they're professionals. I mean, speaking for myself, like I played a game of paddle yesterday against my mates, and I really wanted to win, and that means nothing. So these are NFL players, like they want to win every game,
Yeah, well, yeah, I think overall you're correct. Like the market will definitely probably overevaluate or bettors therefore. So yeah, fascinating. We will get to the Jets. They're the first bet up. Quick reminder, and we will point you in the direction of our most generous new customer offer currently on Matchbook. So if you haven't got a Matchbook account and you want the benefits of betting your singles on the NFL with our competitive exchange markets, and you will get the best price on odds checker, sometimes both sides of the ball at over rounds at just over 100%, or you can use our bet builder options. What are you waiting for? A new customer offer. Enter the bonus code POD50 and get £50 worth in free bets when you bet £50. There's full T's and C's available on the ticker there below, but also on matchbook.com/promotions and insights.matchbook.com. And also, as I always mention every week, if you can take 2 seconds, hit that like button if you're watching live, or if you're watching the live stream back, or if you're listening to the podcast, head over to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, hit a like button, whatever way you can to support the podcast, help us continue making these. And we enjoy every week listening to the thoughts of Brad and Judah. So Judah, kick us off with the Jets, because I was actually going to follow up and go back to you on the Jets specifically there. Yeah, how do you try and price them up? Obviously, this is more for at the end of the season stuff, but given we've had all the trades this week, there's got to, like, the game doesn't take place in a vacuum. Some outside noise does come into camp, especially with the players being gone, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that the big part is that they lost some like huge defensive players for a defense that was already really struggling, especially in pass defense. I mean, they were bottom 5 in EPA per play before losing an all-world corner and best player on the interior. Obviously, it's very, very difficult to like precisely quantify, and defense is a unit of 11 people at one time that are all interacting against one another, and there are second order effects. Of course, like not having Sauce Gardner kind of take away your number one receiver. Not that he's always been shadowing, or even like not having to double Quinn Williams is also probably going to make other players on your line worse. All that is to say, like, this was already a bad Jets defense, and I think there's a lot of room even for them to get marginally worse. And it's probably at the point where, and again, there's some guesswork involved here, at the point where the Browns offense, I think, is good enough to overcome. It's possible Dylan Gabriel really just has nothing and can't take advantage of a Jets defense, but this projects to me as one of the worst in the NFL. But why I'm more intrigued in betting on them is I think in virtually kind of all other areas of the ball outside of passing offense, I think the Browns have a pretty huge advantage. And that's in a run defense that's been really good. Obviously, the Jets can beat anyone with Justin Fields and Breece Hall performing as well as they have in the run game. But this is a pass defense that's been great. And the Cleveland rushing offense, I anticipate, should also be able to have some success on the Jets. But yes, you just kind of take everything into account. I do think professionals are going to try and win, but this is a Jets team that is really, really, really devoid of talent basically everywhere. I mean, we'll see if Garrett Wilson plays, but this is just not a very competitive roster, I think, relative to the Browns.
Yeah, but I'd be interested to get your take on this. I'm guessing you're staying away from the betting on this game itself, but because you have liked some of what Jets have done throughout the season, at least in some of the matchups. So where are you at currently, maybe as they host the Browns?
It's tricky because this has moved like 4-5 points, isn't it, based on these trades? And I don't think I don't think you'd say in a vacuum that Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner are worth 4 to 5 points on their own.
They moved in between field goals, so I would discount a little bit.
It's 50 cents or something, right? It's say minus 130 to minus 120 the other way. So like that's, I don't know, it's a huge chunk of win probability. Like that's my only concern, is that it's priced in now.
Yeah, Jude, any further thoughts on that before we move on?
I mean, like, I think there's some confounding parts to the price movement. And I'm not sure that that opener would have stayed. Kind of even if those trades were or it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, look, that's obviously the question. It's like kind of what I led with. It's very difficult to price in, and we don't have any real data for a 2025 Jets team without these guys.
Yeah, and look, if something gets bet in, doesn't necessarily mean it's still not value. So Judah's first selection of the day is Browns money line at the Jets. That's 182 at the time of recording, and a full recap is available on insights.matchbook.com. Brad, lead us off with the Cardinals at the Seahawks, under 45.5, currently on Matchbook 188.
Yes, I think we got maybe a shade of value given who these two teams played last week. Obviously, Cardinals at Dallas, who probably the worst defense in the league. And the Seahawks at Washington, who are competing with Dallas for worst defense in the league. So if we start when Seattle has the ball, so they have been an elite offense, top 5 by DVOA, but I feel like they might not be as good going forward because they come out in these heavy formations, they run the ball and they run it badly, but then they run play action and they throw it downfield and complete massive chunk plays. So the offense is good as a whole. I'm kind of confused why a team by defense yet hasn't just ignored the run, gone, okay, you can run it because you can't run it, and just kept 2 safety deep, put the shell over the top, ignore the play action. This is what the Steelers did to the Colts last week, actually. They just ignored the run. They said, we think you're going to play action and throw it. And they did, and Daniel Jones threw 5 turnovers or whatever it was. So I feel that's in their future at some point, especially with the Cardinals. They've been banged up on defense all season long. They're still 9th in DVOA, but there was a week they were missing 3 corners. They just got Garrett Williams, the cornerback, back last week. They got their first round pick, Walter Nolan, back last week. So they're getting a little bit healthier. So they're arguably better than 9th in DVOA. They're probably a top 10 unit. So I feel we might not see the same explosiveness out of the Seahawks offense. And then when Arizona has the ball, obviously Brissett has definitely been an upgrade so far. But again, he's played the Cowboys, and I watched that game back, and my overwhelming thought was the Cowboys are pathetic. Like, it was just throw it out to the flat, pick up 10 yards. Like, they had a touchdown drive where he basically did that 5 times in a row. And then they snuck it from the 2-yard line or so and was barely touched. And Brissett is literally going, this is so easy. This is so effing easy, he said. So again, I think that's kind of inflating what we expect from him. His other games against the Packers, who are obviously a good unit, but then also against the Colts, who had their top corner like concussed in the build-up. They were also down another corner in that game. So as a whole, Brissett has been better, but he has not faced anyone, I think, on a Seahawks level at home. Cardinals offensive line 26th in pressure rate allowed, and they're going to be facing a top 5 defensive line. So yeah, I think throw it all together, I think it's probably a couple of points too high for me.
Okay, Jude, I would say that goes down as a good case even on Brissett himself. I mean, I watched the highlights of that Cowboys game. They were shambles, and it did seem far too easy for Cardinals to move the ball. Can they do that against the Seahawks team? Do you like the under here, or what way would you play it if you had an
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably would lean under. I share some concern of the fact that, like, Jacoby Brissett did beat the Packers, not beat them as in win, but definitely had a terrific offensive performance, and that is by all accounts, I think, a great defense. They've been moving the ball great for 3 straight games. Does that necessarily mean that it's going to continue? Of course not. Is this a great spot for them? No. Is there also some reason to believe that this is a possible outcome? Of course. And then what I guess concerns me on the other side is, like, the Seahawks offense is unbelievably explosive and can just put up points so quickly. Like Sam Darnold, it doesn't feel real because we have such a strong prior on who Sam Darnold was coming into the season. But this is a guy who's just, if it weren't for Drake May having a historically great deep season, we'd be talking about Sam Darnold doing the same. And I think that's like really part and parcel of the scheme. So I don't hate the play. Those are just kind of the concerns on each side.
Okay, important to hear the pros and cons of a bet, but Brad liking under 45.5 at the time of recording, 188 Cardinals at the Seahawks, and Judah Jags at the Texans. I've struggled myself to have a call in this game or a strong opinion. But I was so slightly surprised to see you going for one here. Texans money line 202. Why does that represent value to you?
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence just has not been good this season, and an area where in particular he struggled is against perfect coverage, which is when his receivers or scheme or not getting open, and every kind of coverage defender is doing their job. Texans are number 1 in perfect coverage rate, and the Jaguars now, I mean, Jacoby Myers they just traded for him, but they're down Travis Hunter, down Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, I possible he plays, but he's got a high ankle sprain. I would be absolutely stunned. And that's only going to increase the rate of perfect coverage, where Trevor Lawrence has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. You add on the fact that Trevor Lawrence has had a major kind of pressure to sack problem over the last month of the season. I mean, before last game, he took 7 sacks in back-to-back games, going up against a ferocious Texans defensive line. And I think this is just a horrible matchup for the Jags offense. Like, yeah, I don't think Davis Mills is a terrific quarterback. This is also not a Jaguars defense that is particularly terrifying to me. I think they should be able to move the ball decently. And where this really comes down to is, I think, just a total overmatch of the Texans defense versus the Jaguars offense.
Okay, Brad, your thoughts on that matchup there?
Yes, I agree with that angle that Trevor Lawrence is going to get cooked here. I might prefer just to do the Jags team total under, which is 19.5. You'd obviously much rather the 20, but I think 19.5 is still good. And that way you just get rid of A, the Texans offensive line, which is the worst in the league, and then B, Davis Mills. Because as we spoke about this game the first round, and I think I backed Houston that time. And Judah said, what about the Jags pass rush? And that is how it turned out. So I'd still be worried that the Houston is not going to move the ball at all. And so I would maybe try and just focus in on the Jags team total under.
Okay, a couple of different angles there, but Judah's locking in Texans money line 202 currently on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. We're going to cover the single first here, Brad, on the Giants at the Bears. Just did a quick calculation. The total number of points in these two teams' games last week, 146 points. Giants at Bears, under 46.5 is what you're going for, 196.
Yes, this is just the weather. I'll just read the forecast from Kevin Roth at Rotor Grinders. Bit of rain, snow mix. I expect sustained winds, 15 to 20 miles an hour. Wind gusts around 30. And snow and rain during the game. So this has come down about 2 points, but if that is the forecast, if that is how the weather is, and reading this, the wind is fairly likely, that is probably going to happen. The snow and the rain is less likely, but 20-mile-an-hour winds with gusts over 30, like this total will drop. This will be 44.5 on game day if if that's the weather, and that's pretty much the angle. Like you can't throw deep passes in the wind. That's it.
Sometimes it's a simple game, Judah. Weather games, right? They're always tough, especially on a Friday. I know we're getting close to game day. Do you stay away from them yourself as a bettor? How do you go about it? Obviously, like I think Brad makes good points. The market's gone down 2, hasn't probably gone down to 4. It probably would if the weather forecast. Therefore, you make that calculation on how accurate that weather forecast. There's obviously a lot that goes into this, but can you find an angle?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like SGPs are probably the best way of getting it.
Ooh, yeah.
Because if you're going to bet on one thing, you probably want to bet on, effectively multiple legs that are all going to have value if the weather turns out to be true. But yeah, it's always difficult at this point. And the thing about the weather is that it changes very frequently. So, you never really know if I'm not a meteorologist, but if a certain storm just changes something very slightly, the results can be different. And even the thing about weather in particular that I'd be mindful of is that like certain stadiums are built in certain ways to either like enhance an effect or decrease it. So like the Browns, for instance, just get like because the stadium's on the lake, get some crazy kind of wind and like. To use a baseball example, in San Francisco, there are consistently like 15 to 20 mile per hour winds just because of where the stadium is located, but it doesn't have the same effect on the ball as it would a 15 to 20 mile per hour wind in Chicago at Wrigley Field. So all these things need to be accounted for. But yes, there are, I think, plenty of times where an SGP in particular makes a lot of sense on a weather angle.
Yeah, something similar to the sun in AT&T. Quick one before Brad actually has an SGP or a bet builder on this game for the long shots, Judah. But if you were composing one, are you just hitting under alts, or how would you go about it in your own head?
Yeah, it depends. It's like trying to play out, the story. In this game in particular, I think Brad hit the angle that I would, but sometimes certain teams are going to have a different effect because of the wind. Maybe that means like, for instance, the Raiders last night, also in a pretty bad weather game, were throwing a ton of screen passes, which, might be interesting for getting lots of receptions and not a lot of yards, or a player kind of like having plenty of attempts but going under his yards, things of that variety. Always trying to get creative with thinking through how a team's going to attack. Who might they go to if they have to take away some part of their game plan? It's all, I think, team dependent.
Yeah, and that's how you can eke out that bit of value on the matchbook bet builder. Incidentally, Thursday Night Football this week, the most Thursday Night Football game of all time. As someone who watched the YouTube highlights, then saw a minute video that summed it up on X or Twitter, well, we're digging out that minute video and not putting yourself through the YouTube highlights. Brad, we're locking that in under 46.5, 196 Giants at the Bears. That's a single. So we're going to move on to long shots where every week we get the guys to pick a bet at a juicy enough price. And this is the bet builder here. So we lock in under 46.5 points, and you've got 2 weather factor games similar to Judah's angle there too.
Yep. So the second leg would just be Caleb Williams under 225 passing, which is, again, a lot of wind, and the Bears want to run the ball anyway. They're 8th in rushing offensive DVOA. I think they're 25th in passing. Like they're much happier when they're just running the ball. And then we're going to throw in Kyle Monongai over 40.5. And obviously he went nuts last week, but DeAndre Swift back this week, which is why the number is down there. I kind of think, they're talking about a split, and I think there's a decent chance that Monongai gets the bigger part of that split. This is the head coach talking about him. He's a really physical runner. The number one thing about Kyle is how coachable he is and how willing he is to work through corrections. He does everything exactly the way we coach it. Now, DeAndre Swift is the opposite of that. DeAndre Swift is a moron. DeAndre Swift ignores where the hole is blocked to be and just does his own thing. And obviously he's explosive at times, but these coaches, they love a player who does exactly what they're told to. That's why Kyle Shanahan loves Mac Jones so much, because if he says the first read is between the linebackers, throw it there, Mac Jones will do that. So, I think if you watch these 2 players, Swift and Monongai, it just looks the better player and is clearly well liked by the coaches. So at 40.5, They're going to be running the ball more, I think, because of the weather conditions. They have the 8th best rushing DVOA, as discussed. The New York Giants have the 32nd ranked rush defense. So 40.5 feels low to me. So throw them all together. And if it is windy, this is a nice bet at 5.75.
Yeah, and it's something as Judah touched on, you can turn a 196 shot into a 5.75 shot, attacking similar-ish angles, albeit obviously the single is the main bet. Eagles at Packers, Judah. I think this is Monday Night Football. Have they sorted out that issue with ESPN, or what's going on? Like, I don't know about you, Brad, but looking afar with Sky Sports, we're pretty happy enough with Monday Night Football here.
Yeah, I'm not a YouTube TVer, so thankfully I had access to watch Monday Night Football. I mean, that would have been brutal if not. But yeah, look, I think it's a relatively thin week, I think, for the long shots here. But the angle I'm playing with the Packers is that this is an Eagles defense that is really forcing teams to throw deep. It's an area historically where Jordan Love has loved to attack, pun intended. And I think can have some success. Obviously, I think the health of the Packers receiving core, or just general, losing Tucker Kraft, obviously a big deal here. But this is a team I think that can put up a ton of points. And Jalen Hurts has struggled against disruption this year, which is an area where the Packers are number one. So if you get into a game state here where the Packers are hitting on some explosives early, are able to kind of unleash the pass rush against the Eagles and the offensive line for the Eagles, their pass blocking grades are down from the last couple of years. We've talked about this kind of all season. Hurts himself has struggled, and I can see this as a game in which the Packers do run away. Not my strongest of conviction plays, but for a long shot that I think I can kind of narrowly eke out some value. It's me, the Packers at 9.5.
Okay, Judah, with warning that not maybe as strong as previous week, so proceed with cautions, but he is taking an alt approach on Packers minus 9.5, 3.3 is the price, Brad.
I'm not sure. So the Eagles' defense is getting better. They added Jalen Phillips in the trade. They're probably going to get Nolan Smith, edge rusher, back this week, and I'm really unconvinced by this Packers offense, especially with the injury to Tucker Kraft. You kind of saw that with the Jags when they lost their tight end, Bretton Strange. They fell off a cliff. Or with the 49ers and George Kittle, when Kittle went down, the 49ers could just no longer run the ball. So if the Eagles have a good edge in the trenches and the Packers can't run the ball, and then they're throwing to possibly subpar receivers that they couldn't really go open against the Panthers last week. I would worry. I would worry about getting margin on the Eagles personally.
Okay. Brad also proceeding with caution extra bit, but we're locking in Packers minus 9.5, 3.3 at the time of recording on Matchbook. Best bet time, Brad. Steelers at Chargers. It feels every week we're going against the Chargers here, but if the angle's good, you got to keep going. And this is only your first half approach. What with the Chargers, even the last couple of weeks in particular, is still giving you a little bit of a red flag because they seem to fix a lot of the problems slowly, albeit there's still more to solve, obviously.
Well, we were pro Chargers last week, weren't we? We had over 43.5. We thought they scored some points, and I think Judah was saying he liked them minus 9.5. But that was against A, the Tennessee Titans, and then B, they lost Joe Alt again. I mean, to give you an idea of the state of the offensive line, they traded for Trevor Penning, who the Saints drafted in the first round at tackle, decided he was terrible at tackle, so they moved him to guard. And the Chargers have traded, I think, a 7th round pick for him to give you an idea of his value, and might put him back at tackle because it's an absolute mess up front. So, I like to quote Brandon Thorne, who writes about the biggest mismatches in the trenches each week. And he has Steelers DL over Chargers O-line as his biggest mismatch. And I'll just read the final line here. There are glaring mismatches at literally all 5 spots for the Chargers in this game that make this as decisive of a mismatch as we will see all season. So this is literally the reason we bet against the Chargers every week, because they cannot block and they're going up against a good defensive line. So I'm going first half here for 2 reasons. One is that Pittsburgh is much better in the first half. Arthur Smith is a bit of a script merchant. script's first 15 plays does well. So the Steelers are 9th in first half EPA on offense, and they dropped to 19th for the full game. I was trying to pull up their second half EPA. It's actually 25th in the second half. So 9th in the first half, 25th in the second half. So much better in the first half. And the other angle is that obviously this is a night game, and West Coast teams historically benefit in the second half of a night game just because the body clocks are slightly different. So yeah, Steelers first half plus 1.5. I think that is a cracking bet.
Steelers halftime, Chargers full time. Judah, on that approach there, so 9 weeks into the season, and we'll never have a big enough sample size in an NFL season because ideally you'd like, thousands and thousands of scenarios. But around 9 weeks, Brad is starting to look at the first half, second half approach. Is that an angle you've ever done, or is that something that you like the sound of?
Yeah, I don't hate the angle. It's not something I personally look at just because. I mean, there are obviously angles and reasons to do it in particular. My general rule of thumb is in a game that's already very, very random, trying to kind of narrow the sample size of an already small sample is usually introducing a lot of variance that I don't love. But there are obviously always going to be particular reasons to bet kind of first half or second half. There are only so many markets you can look at. I think at one time to try and really dig into to see value. It's just personally not one that I've kind of ever dug into, but this is obviously a compelling case. And
before we move on to best bet for Judah, Brad, would you do this regularly enough after a couple of weeks? Is it just this time of year? Because it's an interest. I think I was on with someone. It must have been Drew, or someone has done that before. But when you point the data behind it, you can really eke out a bit of value, especially with game script as well.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a real thing because of the script, and coaches over the years start to get a reputation for it, and you can see it. Like the Vikings, you go watch the Vikings last week. First 2 drives of the game, they look like a well-oiled machine on the script because they practice these plays all week, and then suddenly the quarterback looks like he has no clue what's going on. It looks like his controller's disconnected. He's just standing there looking around. It's the same with the 49ers. Like they come out every week, the first 2 drives of the game, they look unbelievable, and then they often fall off. And the 49ers over the last 3 years, they're like 66% in the first quarter spread, stuff like that. So it's often the Shanahan McVay tree that does really well on the scripts, like who do make an effort to write them out and practice them. But yeah, obviously it's not everyone, but Arthur Smith has. This is something I've looked at for a few years, and Arthur Smith has historically been pretty good at it. So I personally think it's a thing.
And it's tough, obviously, to price that in to the market if you're feeding off the main line as the halftime. Marks.
It's all derivatives, isn't it? So
exactly. So
if it's a thing, then it's probably mispriced.
Then it has to be value, yeah. So and on those 2 coaches, Judah, we'll go to your best bet here. I'm a massive fan of the Rams. I really am. I really like the way they play. You're taking the 5.5 here at the 49ers. You think that's value, and it's your best bet of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the line has moved even this opened at 3.5, but this is still a spot where I think the Rams are just, I think, in a world of a matchup right here. I mean, the Niners defense, they've lost everyone effectively. This is a team that's performing at a bottom 5 clip since losing Fred Warner, losing Nick Bosa. They lost more of their defensive line depth than Mykal Williams. This is just a disaster of a front 7 in particular, and Matthew Stafford has been one of the kind of biggest matchup dependent quarterbacks in the NFL for many years here, and he has been dominant and certainly this year against defenses that, whatever you want to choose your metric, can't generate a pass rush, not great in coverage. That describes the 49ers right now, and I think this is very quietly Matthew Stafford is kind of performing at an MVP clip. I think he should have his kind of full arsenal of weapons to go with. This is a Rams defense that's top 5 in quick pressure rate. Mac Jones has really struggled against quick pressure. I think to Brad's earlier point about Mac Jones just throwing to his first read, but if he's forced to get off that via a quick pressure or something that takes him off, he's really struggled and has not done a great job of creating. So a spot overall that I think the Rams should have a pretty clear matchup advantage in addition to just being a far better team so far this season.
And just the Rams as a whole, Judah, because I was actually, funny enough, looking at it yesterday, the Super Bowl market. I think we've 8 teams from 7.4 on Matchbook to 13.0. Seriously competitive. Can't remember it as competitive if you go from top to bottom. I know maybe you might have 13 or 14 teams in and around that price, but the LA Rams interested me a little bit just at a 10 or 11.0. You don't have to talk about the price specifically, or is it a team on your radar for the Super Bowl?
They're on the radar. I think, kind of to your point, the difficult piece to this is that everything's so competitive. I'm also pretty high on the Seahawks at this point, and for the Super Bowl in particular, like getting the number 1 seed is huge, and just by virtue of playing in that division, I think it'll probably be a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I think if you want to think about it from a perspective of if everything goes right for a team, what's their upside? Like the Rams certainly have it. This is a potential terrific defense. They've been great all season, and the offense right now is firing on all cylinders. And Puka Nacua leaves every game with an injury, but so long as he's healthy, this is an offense that is as good as anyone's.
Yeah, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Brad, take that any way you want in terms of the Rams -5.5 on the Super Bowl, whatever way.
Yeah, I did have a little bit of Rams team total over 26.5, which is a good price on the Matchbook Bet Builder currently. What's that? It's 3 to 4, 1.75 currently, I think. It's just last month after all these injuries for the 49ers, 27th in success rate allowed, the lowest pressure rate in the league, 10%, and Stafford will cook you if you don't pressure him. So easy.
Yeah, proper quarterback. Love when he's on song. It's a proper watch. But my thanks to Judah and Brad. A little bit over the half hour. Now, I do want to mention this at the end of the show. We have had a lot of comments in terms of trying to get the show a little bit longer and people liking the shorter format still. So we're trying to find that balance. But if you have any comments on that, do leave it on the YouTube or do DM me personally on X. I know a few guys have done that as well. But appreciate you guys engaging with the show. My thanks as always, as I said, to Brad and Judah. Really enjoy listening to your thoughts. We'll be back next week as the Super Bowl race heats up. As I mentioned, a very competitive market. Bye-bye.